what did I have as a kid?
What toys did you have as a kid?
Oh,
What were your
that's
favorites?
fascinating. My mother would not let me buy any toys that were advertised on television because she thought it was an undue influence. So the toys that I had as a kid were primarily out of the Sears catalog because they were usually not advertised, so I could choose what I wanted from there. And I remember having a bazooka gun, which was basically a cardboard tube made with plastic handles that had a spring in it and a central rod, and you would take a plastic missile that had a hole in it and slide it down the shaft of the bazooka, and it would fire the bazooka across the room. And because we were all post-World War II kids, everything was, I mean, occasionally it was cowboys and Indians that we played, but everything was World War II. You know, we were always the Germans, the Nazis against the GIs, and a friend of mine, we got together, we made a tank in my backyard. We got a bunch of refrigerator boxes, and we got a round box from his mother. It was a hat box, and we got a cardboard tube from a rug that rugs were rolled up on. So we would build, you know, our own stuff. If we couldn't, you know, buy the toys, we were building it, and we built this whole tank, and we painted it with camouflage, so it looked like it was camouflage, and that was in our yard till the rain destroyed it. But we played with that all summer, and we used to do crazy things. You know, it's like, it was totally different time period because I could walk to grade school and walk home, even though it was probably maybe a quarter of a mile from my house. Nobody ever said, you know, you shouldn't let your kids go to, you know, walk to school, from when I was really young. And the neighborhood was small and compact, so everybody could just walk to everybody else's house and play. And we would have like these huge battles that went for blocks. You know, it's like you would go from one person's house that was the German headquarters to somebody else's house that was the American headquarters, and we would do crazy things like take string and paint it so you couldn't see it, so it would match like the skyline and then the trees. You would paint the top part like pastel blue and then the bottom part green, and you would set it up between the branches of the trees in the house, and then you would chase somebody and you would know to go underneath it, and then they would get tangled. We would do all kinds of crazy things like that. I really wonder how much this, you know, like having everything here, you know, like I see kids and they're playing and everything is here, how much it affects their play value.
Well, it just puts it inside there. You know,
and their
things.
creativity too. You know, it's like if you're always giving a kid the solution or the complete role play of the line of play, how much do they get to be creative? I don't know. You know, it may be that it's just a totally different way, and that, you know, they'll end up doing completely different things with it.
Right.
But you know, I think the biggest problem with toys now is that they're completely taken over by, you know, movie properties or television properties. So there's less innovation than there used to be because, you know, it's not, you don't have a lot of independent designers. Now, the designer toy scene itself is creating kind of its own little groups of independent toy designers who are doing some really neat things. But the major companies, they're looking to Pixar, they're looking to Disney, they're looking to, you know, DreamWorks. You know, it's like everybody is producing a package deal for them, and so I don't, and it's such a huge budget to get into it, and the cost of producing toys has gotten so expensive that the toy companies in a way don't have any choice but to go with these big blockbuster licensing groups of, Marvel and everything else. So it's hard to know is there going to be somebody like Stan Lee who can start his own little, comic book company and develop that into a major licensing program? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible anymore. Even like Turtles, will Turtles ever, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Their story's incredible, yeah.
Yeah, would it ever go that big?
Very
I
tough.
remember seeing Turtles at Toy Fair and saying that's one of the best things I've seen at Toy Fair. And it was mainly because it was so different. It was so oddball and different. I immediately said that's going to be a hit. And part of it is because most of the toy companies see what somebody else is doing and mimic it. And it's not innovative or different. It doesn't stand out. And so people aren't attracted to it because it looks just like everything else. Can't answer that. There's a lot of ideas that I did that I still think are viable. So I can't tell you what they are because then I'd be giving away what I still think is a great and viable idea. Some of them which I presented to toy companies 20 years ago that were too far ahead of their time for them to make at that time, but now would be more viable. Because that's the thing, it's like knowing when in a sequence of time and technology that something is plausible and economically viable is you have to be at the beginning of the cusp of it happening at the right time for it to happen. And sometimes you're ahead of the game, too far ahead of the game, and the timing isn't right. So Dwark is the closest thing that I've done that looks like what I initially created. So it's probably the one that is most me. Well, I think the Sectaurs characters, if you go from this to what they look like, it's there, but it's also, I always say, because the ones that we produced were more like real insects. And the guy who headed up Coleco used to work, I think, at General Motors as head of their innovative design group. So I always say that he kind of took Sectaurs and turned them into Studebakers. Like they went from being these kind of soft combinations of hard and soft, and then like the Dragonflyer, if you look at his head and his body, it's very streamlined, and it's not, like insects, when you look at them really closely, are just like masses of like these little hairs and things, which is what I wanted. He made them very streamlined and smooth, and so I say they look like Studebakers.